This episode is brought to you by BetUS.com. Go to BetUS.com and get yourselves a 125% sign up bonus using the promo code NinosCorner at BetUS.com. Folks, go download that BetUS.com app from your favorite Apple phone or Android phone and get yourselves a 125% sign up bonus using the promo code NinosCorner.
What's up, folks? Look, man, we got a brand new coach, man. Yeah, man. So Kenny Baker has been named, or is supposed to be named, the Texas defensive line coach. As folks know, that we've had a huge search here. Looks like it was offered to Rod Wright, and things didn't go, in the direction that both teams wanted it to go towards. So there have been some, just some second names also that were out there too as well. But it looks like Texas has kind of settled in on their guy, and it's going to be Kenny Baker. And folks, let me give me a second. Let me share my screen here, and we're going to take a look at just his resume. And so this is from Miami. So this is his official resume. You know what? Let's go ahead and get rid of this one. I don't like that screen. But yeah, he actually coached 11 years in college football. This is his first year, folks, here, in the pros. And look, honestly, I do want to share a screen here, but King Conta says, can he recruit? We don't know. That's the unknown about this, is that we don't know just how good of a guy he is when it comes to recruiting. This is a bit of an unknown. He hasn't coached at the Power 5 level, but as we've seen here with Sark, Sark is going after guys that has some NFL experience, right? And so he wants to make sure that, once he goes and talks to recruits, they understand that, this guy has played, in college. This guy's coached in college, but not only that, he is coached at a high, effort and a high level when it comes to the NFL. And so this is Kenny Baker, so he is coached with the Dolphins. The Dolphins were in the playoffs this year. And the Dolphins had a pretty decent defense this year. And so, all things point to him. We don't know what he's going to be. Is he going to be a rainmaker when it comes to recruiting? Is he going to be a guy that is going to develop players? I do know that when he was coaching at Western Kentucky, he did coach, on that line as well. And one of the linemen was the defensive player of the year for the Conference USA. And so we know at that level that he can develop the talent that he has. But it is a bit of an unknown, folks. That is something that we just don't know. We understandably don't know exactly how good this guy is going to be at the Power 5 level. But look, same thing could be said last year when Sark brought in Chris Jackson. Right. And there were a lot of people who wanted, other people, they wanted Samples to be in here. They thought that, look, we were going to lose recruits because of that. Samples is close, of course, to his father, and Duncanville and Colin Simmons is there. And we need that for that person and that reason and that purpose. Look, we're totally fine here this year, folks, at the wide receiver position. Chris Jackson recruited, outstanding, and it's pretty much his first time at coaching at this level in college. He had been a guy that was an assistant wide receiver coach with the Bears, and then went on to Jacksonville and did his great things there, and then came to Texas, right? And so we've seen that he's in the box, and he's eyes in the sky for Sark, and his offense was outstanding this year. And I'm pretty sure behind closed doors, Steve Sarkisian is going to tell you that a lot of that has to do with not only his preparation, but also the preparation of guys like Chris Jackson as well. So looking at a guy like Kenny Baker, right? He's a bit of an unknown. And there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with that. We have got to figure out exactly, who he is. But, the key thing is we have a defensive line coach in place. So he can get on the road right now. He can start going out and he can recruit. And he can do, hopefully good things here for Texas. So our future says, if I have to choose which strengths for him to have out of recruiting or developing, give me development all day. Yes. I think Sark wants a recruiter, man. Because if it was truly about development, we would have kept Bo Davis. Bo Davis is a proven, commodity at what he has done. When it comes to developing players. But, Bo Davis is gone now. We can't even think about that. Can Kenny Baker develop players? That's what we have to see. Can he recruit? That's what we have to see. Ed Blake says, never heard of him. Does this move the needle? this is kind of out of left field for everybody and people that we've been talking to behind the scenes and in different chats. And people are like, no, we haven't heard of this guy, but Sark has hired him for a reason, and Sark has made some pretty damn good hires, here over these last 3 years. And so this is one of those things you got to trust. You got to trust in Sark and his evaluation, not only of the players that he recruits, but of the coaching staff too that he wants to assemble here. Like I said with Chris Jackson last year, I don't think anybody thought or would think that Chris Jackson will be this fruitful of an addition here to the Texas staff. Just seeing his previous stops, right? So Kenny Baker, I think it's in the same boat. But if Sark picked him, you got to trust it. So look, I'm going to bring up his bio, folks. Now that I got it up. Let's take a look. His bio, and this is from the Miami Dolphins website. And if you guys can see that, it says Kenny Baker joined the Dolphins as an assistant defensive line coach in 2023. He spent 3 seasons at Western Kentucky, and where he coached the defensive ends in 2020 and also the defensive line in 21 and 22. The Hilltoppers went to bowl games in all 3 seasons, including wins in those last 2 seasons. Okay, so in 2022, this is where it gets to like the meat of his his tenure at Kentucky here. So in 2022, West Kentucky had the second best scoring defense in Conference USA. Opponents only scored about 23.4 points a game. They had 32 sacks that season. It was second in the conference, ranked third in total defense with 383.9 yards. And then he worked in 2021 with defensive end D'Angelo Malone, Conference USA Defensive Player of the Year. The guy had 8 sacks, 88 tackles, and then he was drafted in the 3rd round by the Falcons, right? And so that's kind of the extent of his defensive prowess, right? But just go down and take a look at his coaching career. So 2009, he was a grad assistant at his alma mater, so Gardner Webb. And then he became a DC at a high school in Georgia, Lakeside High School. And then he was a co-DC and a linebackers coach at Berry College, and then Mercer for 4 years, or actually 5 years coaching. He was a DL, so he was the line coach at Mercer, which is right outside of Atlanta, down in Macon, Georgia. And then in 2019, he's a defensive ends coach. He's a defensive line coach at UT Chattanooga. And then he's at Western Kentucky for 3 seasons from 20 to 2022. And then this year, currently with the Miami Dolphins as an assistant defensive line coach. So that is the extent of his career. So there's honestly, folks, there's not a lot to glean from that. You just understanding that, hey, Sark has vetted this guy. He's probably had the interviews with him, probably came out very impressed with him, understands that, he's a young, energetic guy. Probably he's going to hit the recruiting trail and do great things there too as well. One other notion that I want to, bring in here, we all understand that he is going to be a defensive coach at the Reese's Senior Bowl. And so, like when those guys select the coaches there, they're pretty selective on those guys. So there must have been some kind of good word on him too as well there. So look, it's an unknown, folks. Yes, I know people are surprised. This is an unknown, but Texas has gotten their guy, and their guy is going to be Kenny Baker. So King Kunta has another comment because hopefully he can help us get one of the DTs from Michigan if they hit the portal. If they hit the portal, that's going to be interesting because I think it all depends on what happens with Michigan. Does Michigan keep Sherron Moore? And if they keep him, I think that staff stays intact. So that defensive line coach that they got is going to still be there. And I think he keeps his guys with him, right? And their defensive line coach is an alum of U of M. So it just makes sense that if he stays there, his guys are going to stay with him. Black Wind says Bo Davis wasn't a big recruiter, but a developer. The guy is 37 and has a year in the NFL. He's probably better at connecting with today's players. Exactly. And maybe that's it. Maybe we got to just see what he can do. We haven't seen him do this at the Power 5 level. We've seen him do it 1 year, at Miami, but how much of that was he? He was an assistant defensive line coach, the same, job that Rod Wright had, and people kind of mocked at his resume, right? And so we're getting a guy whose resume I don't think is the strongest, Rod Wright's, but obviously Coach Sarkisian sees something in him. I'm glad we just got a coach. I'm glad that we have a coach that we can sit in front of kids and kids understand that this is who that they're going to be coached by while they're at the University of Texas. And to the recruits, you also have to understand when you have a position coach, if your position coach is good, 9 times out of 10 at a big time school like Texas, that position coach is probably not going to be here your entire time here because at staffs like Texas, and I think Texas is starting to put themselves in this version where you had like Alabama and LSU and Georgia, when these guys are rocking, Clemson, these guys are rocking and their staffs are great. People want a piece of that staff. So they'll take a defensive line coach and go make them a DC, right? Or a co-DC, right? Almost like what Texas did with Johnny Nansen, right? Bringing him from Arizona. He was already a DC there. He was a linebacker coach and co-DC. They bring him over to Texas at a bigger job to be a co-DC and linebacker coach. This guy probably has aspirations of being a head coach. And so those guys are going to get poached. So when these players commit to a school, yes, you commit to a school, but you also commit to that coaching staff. But I would commit more to the defensive coordinator and the head coach instead of committing to your position coach. Because if your school is worth a damn, other schools are going to try to pry your position coach away, right? And that's what happens. That's the law. That's the law of the land when it comes to college football. All right, so Jonathan Miller says, do you think he can recruit? I have no idea, Jonathan Miller. I have no idea. We haven't seen him. I have no idea. I don't know. But that doesn't mean anything because we haven't seen him. Just because we haven't seen him do it at a P5 level, this is where we as fans have to separate ourselves from being fans of our school and also, um, being somebody that is going to be overcritical in a positive or a negative direction when it comes to our school, right? We don't know what he can do. So this is something that we're going to have to fill out and see. Hopefully he makes it and does great things. But Sark, I'm telling you guys, he hasn't really made bad hires here. Even the guys that he's had here that he retained from previous coaching staffs, um, like a Stan Drayton, he's head coaching right now. I mean, he's replaced him with who? Tashard Choice, who's been outstanding, right? So he's went from outstanding, coach at running backs to another outstanding coach at running back. And then, he gets rid of Andre Coleman and brings in Brendan Marion. And what does Brendan Marion do? He only stays here a year. He recruits well, brings in some guys to play that are going to get some playing time this upcoming season. But Brendan Marion stays a year. Now he's an OC in Nevada, finalist for the Broyles Award for best coordinator in the country. These are great hires, right? Chris Jackson comes and replaces Brendan Marion. Great hire. We've seen that. All right. So then Jeff Choate leaves. He's bringing in, Johnny Nansen, a previous co-DC at another Power 5 school. Really good hire, right? So Sark knows what he's doing. All right. So don't get it twisted. This guy knows what he's doing. He's bringing in a young coach that is going to be probably energetic to get on that, cycle when it comes to recruiting. And he's a guy from Georgia too. And that's going to help. Maybe he has some inroads with his time at Mercer, and his time as a high school DC in certain areas there. He played high school ball there too as well. So maybe there's some connections there too as well. But look, we just got to get off the high horse of we wanted a big name, we wanted this, and just understand the fact that this guy might be that guy. But these are guys that you got to take a chance on, right? It's just like with recruiting. We go to the portal and we want the biggest name possible. But you also have to recruit high school guys to come in that you have to develop, right? And those, after a couple of years, those guys are seasoned and they're ready to play. Well, this guy maybe got seasoned over the last 3 or 4 years, and he's ready to come to this P5 level now and be an outstanding coach. So Ed Blake says it best. In Sark, I trust. Hook him. Yeah, in Sark, I trust. Mr. Jonathan Miller says, I like the fact that he's from the Southeast. Yeah, so he knows the lay of the land. But, recruiting in the SEC, recruiting at a Power 5 college is a lot different than some of the stops that he's been at. But, hey, man, we'll see. So Jonathan Miller goes, maybe this can help us land the elite Louisiana, Alabama. I'm not gonna go there because, you got to put it on paper on who he's brought in at that elite level, right? So we can't put that kind of pressure on a guy who hasn't coached at the Power 5 level. And yes, he has 1 year of coaching experience in the NFL. But he was a D-line coach. But look, we can't put that kind of pressure on a guy who has not done it at this level yet, right? So let me see. Mr. DeMar 777 goes, I like the hire, and he comes from the NFL. And so we got to be patient and trust the process. And yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I've been saying too, man, is let him work, man. Let him do his thing. You see what Sark is bringing in. He wants guys with that prior NFL experience, and it's kind of sprinkled throughout his whole staff. All right. You see, Chris Jackson has NFL experience. Cal Flood has NFL experience. Of course, Sarkisian has it. Now we got, Baker has experience too as well. If I'm not mistaken, Johnny Nansen has some experience. I think, also, who else has NFL experience? Yeah, so Cal Flood. I don't know if Banks has NFL experience. But you're seeing that he wants guys that look, he can go into a living room, he can look a kid in his eye and say, hey man, I coached in the NFL and you have NFL in you, right? Like you are an NFL guy. I just coached Christian Wilkinson and other guys in that line. You are an NFL guy. Right. And so maybe that can help too as well. So look, we got another comment from Miguel, but I'm not going to put this on the screen, Miguel, because I might get flagged. But it says, Nino, but can Kenny Rogers, Baker say, some of you need to get. I don't know if he has the Bo Davis ran in him. We don't know, right? We don't know much about this guy. But if Sark trusts him, man, we got to trust the process and understand that Sark knows exactly what is best for this team. He's probably vetted this guy. He's probably had interviews. Not probably. He has vetted this guy and had interviews. He doesn't make a decision like this without all the proper vetting processes in place to make sure this is going to be the best pickup, right? So the main thing now is, how do the players feel about it? How do the guys that are committed to this class feel about it? How does Alex January feel about it, right? How does a guy like Melvin Hills feel about this, right? How do some of the guys that are going to be in this 2025 class, how do they feel about it, right? So it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. But of note, to have him coach at the Senior Bowl here in Mobile, which I might actually drive down to Mobile for that Senior Bowl, since I'm in Montgomery. It's just a couple hours away. But that's a lot of trust from the staff at the Senior Bowl and also from the NFL to send him down to pretty much coach and evaluate players at their Senior Bowl. These are some of your best and your brightest guys. One more thing about the Senior Bowl, and I think this is getting overlooked too, and this is something that I just thought about. This year is the first year in the Senior Bowl, folks, that a guy can go into the Senior Bowl who has been invited, and if that guy does not want to go into the NFL draft, they can go to the Senior Bowl, get evaluated, and if the grade isn't where they want it to be, they can come back to college. So this is something too. This might be a little Jedi mind trick from Steve Sarkisian, right? Where he, has this guy in the Senior Bowl, and there's some guys that are in the transfer portal after the Senior Bowl, and maybe he picks one. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just throwing some information out because we're grasping here for information about Mr. Baker here. But folks, like I said before, man, Steve Sarkisian understands his assignment here at Texas. You can tell he wants a rainmaker when it comes to recruiting, and he wants a guy that can develop. Like I said before, Bo Davis was one hell of a developer. We saw what he did with Coburn and Ojimo, getting those guys drafted in the 6th and 7th round, in the last year's draft. And this year, possibly, 1 to 2 first rounders. None of these guys are getting out of the second round. 2 3-star guys in Sweat and Murphy, right? And then guys that are going to be here next year, they're going to have to be developed here by Baker. All right, so we're going to see off top going into the SEC, big boy ball. We're going to see off top how great of a developer he is. He has a whole offseason. He has a spring and he has a summer, and then we go into fall, baby. And we understand, us Texas fans, some of you guys are ruthless. Y'all don't give nobody no time for nothing. Some of you guys are ruthless, man. So we're going to see. This is going to be the opportunity to see whether or not our team, our core guys that are coming back in a Vernon Broughton, in an Alfred Collins, a Sadir Mitchell, Savia, who's coming in from Arizona. Are these guys going to be up to the task to be able to play in the SEC from day one? Is there something that Baker can do to flip the switch to where some of these guys are on it 100% of the time and not 50% of the time, right? So this is it's good. It's good to have a younger coach in who can relate. Um, Let me see. He graduated in 2008. Is it 2008 he graduated? So that will put, let's say he's 22 in 2008. How many years ago is that, folks? That is 2008, 16 years ago. So he's probably 38. What are you thinking? 38, folks? 37, 38, 22 plus 16 is 38. So at the age of 30, so basically he's under 40. So that means he is a guy that is young enough to be relatable, old enough to be respected, because at 38, 39, 40, uh, that's the generation that I'm in. You know what I'm saying? Um, he likes the music that these kids listen to. He's relatable to them. He's young enough to them to where they can vibe on certain things, but old enough to still be their father, right? You know what I'm saying? All right, Schnell. So he's 37. But he's old enough to be their father, right? He's 37. You got an 18-year-old kid that's in there, man. 19 years old. Very conceivable that 19-year-old male can have an 18-year-old kid, right? Very conceivable that a 16-year-old male can have a 21-year-old kid. I'm sorry. 37-year-old male can have a 21-year-old child. I mean, he had the kid when he was 16. Very conceivable, right? So yeah, he's old enough to be their father and respected if he demands respect, which he's an NFL guy. So I think that's not going to be the question. And I think we see the caliber of folks that Sark's bringing in. They all demand respect. They are grown men in the room, but he's young enough to be a guy that can sit in the couch with their parents and be relatable to their parents. He's not a generation off, and he gets it. So maybe he's one of those guys that is going to get it. But if anybody was looking for, a check the box, by name home run hire, meaning something that's going to wake everybody in college football up, no. Because people were throwing out names. Could it be Ed O? And Ed O's a huge name, right? He's a college football champion as a head coach, and having the head coach go to a D-line coach is something. I don't think there was really that much of an option, but those are things that shake up college football. This doesn't shake up college football, and I think some of the fans wanted that. But this could very well be one of the best hires that Sark made. We don't know. We got to wait till this thing happens and give this thing some time. But like I said before, Sark has had really good hires here, pretty much for his entire staff. And I'm excited to see where this is going to go. I want to see first how the coaching is going to be done at the Senior Bowl. I want to see the evaluations out of that and see how he does with that. And then I am interested to see at the spring game, just the development of some of our guys that are going to be taking the field next year. Primarily, I want to see the development of Sadir Mitchell. I want to see how he's going to be able to mold that clay into somebody who, from a body replacement of a person, he is a direct body replacement for a guy like Sweat. And how is he going to get a guy like Alex Ching? How is he going to mold that? You know what I'm saying? So look here, Jonathan Miller said it best. We felt the same thing about Chris Jackson a year ago. He's now one of our best recruiters. Exactly. And that's what I kind of led off with Jonathan was, look, it's Chris Jackson was one of those guys that we were like, oh my God, man, we wanted, I think most of this fan base wanted samples. They wanted Rashad samples. He has the DFW area on lock. Who his father is, coaching at Duncanville. We had recruits coming out of Duncanville where we're going to have an inroad to those recruits. Was that out of the question now because Texas didn't give him the job or offer him the job? Right. Which I'm sorry, I don't know if they offered him a job or not. I'm just saying he didn't get the job here at Texas. Right. So how was that going to play into the kids coming out of Duncanville? It didn't have any dealings with it. All right. So Sark knows who he wants. Grown man in the room. A guy that has done it not only at the college level, but has also done it at the pro level. And so that's what we're getting. We're getting a guy who is with the Miami Dolphins right now, who's coming here to Texas to coach now. And so you have a guy that had a highly successful team. He was the assistant defensive line coach, and now he gets to run the whole shebang here at Texas. So we'll see, man. Hey, we step into the SEC with a brand new defensive line coach at probably our, how do I want to put this without sounding bad? This is the position room that probably needs the most help right now, right? And so we're getting a guy his first time coaching P5, and he is in charge of the position room that probably needs the most help right now. So I got trust in Sark. Let's get it done, baby. Let's get it done. All right. So Snell goes, there is no highly visible home run hire without baggage. Think Choice and Chris Jackson. Yeah, because even Choice, people didn't know how good Jashard Choice was as a running back coach. We all know that he played in the league, played for my Cowboys, and he was a good player there. He coached at Georgia Tech. He got Jahmyr Gibbs to Georgia Tech, right? We saw that Jahmyr Gibbs, as soon as Choice left and he goes to USC, Jahmyr Gibbs goes over to Alabama, and he's a first-round draft pick. We saw what he did with Bijan Robinson here at Texas. We saw what he did with Roschon Johnson. We see that he has 3 guys that got drafted last year in the draft, and he has another one who has a torn ACL. That's probably going to be the first running back taken in the draft this year. All right, shows you just the development, how much he connects to the players, and Choice is a young guy himself too, right? Now, I think the same thing can be said about this guy, right? Baker, right? So can Kenny Baker be that same kind of guy that is a guy that injects enthusiasm into a group of young men that have to play on full tilt 24/7? You got to be a different kind of guy to play in that line, man. So can he be the guy that does that? Can he develop the talent that's here on campus? So Snell says it best here. He goes, Broughton, Sadir, Collins will be good. Yes. We're going to see exactly how great of a developer he is, especially Collins and Broughton. This is their last year. This is their money year, right? If they're motivated to be the best version of themselves, it's this year. So how much are they going to buy in to Baker to assure that Baker is going to be the guy who's going to lead them to the promised land when it comes to being a defensive lineman, right? How much are they going to buy in? That's going to be the true key, is seeing when those seniors in that line room, when these seniors come up and they're the ones who are, no kidding, being the folks that are going to lead that room and make it pretty much, look, the coach is going to teach us what needs to get taught during the week, but this is our room, right? We're going to take his teachings and learning, and then we're going to go here outside hours, be a better unit, and be a player-led team that is coupled with the great coaching of a guy like Kenny Baker, if he turns out to be a great coach, right? So that's what we're looking for. How is he going to develop those 3 guys? Most definitely. I think Snell, you hit the nail on the head. I think Sadir is definitely going to be the future of what we want in the SEC, a big-bodied guy, him and, Alex January next to each other at 320, 330 pounds next to each other. And then a guy like Melvin Hills who gets developed, right? Who gets developed and does this thing and beefs up from 280 to a 300-pound dude that's versatile and plays an Alfred Collins kind of role, right? How do you mix all that together? And that's going to be what we're going to see if he can do it. And if Sark picked him, I think we understand he can do it. It's just that the world hasn't seen it yet, right? So caught everybody off guard, though. Like, to be honest, I'm not going to lie. It caught me off guard. I'm pretty sure it caught you guys off guard. Because people are like, who is this guy? And then you got to do your research on him and figure out who he is. But this is a guy who has some chops, at a group of 5 level, but then also has some chops in the NFL, also. And when you're coming from an NFL staff, you kind of see how a good team is run. And the Dolphins were a well-oiled team. They were ran well, and especially on the defense side of the ball too. So it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to fit in. But Sark's picked him. I'm pretty sure he's vetted him with PK as well and the other guys on the defensive staff, and maybe they gel together well. Maybe they see themselves out on the recruiting trail doing some great things together. We got a pretty young staff now, folks, which is not a bad thing. We got a pretty young staff that can go out there and hopefully recruit their asses off. Baker's 37. Danson's not that old of a guy either. We all know Blake Gideon. He's in his 30s too as well, with late 30s. Terry Joseph is not that old of a guy either. Even PK, for a DC who's been around for a while, he's not an old coach, right? So we got a pretty young staff here. that can get out there on the recruiting trail and do the damn thing, right? So Jonathan Miller has another comment. He goes, honestly, I think this might be the new rule on how to find coaches. Samples feels more like a Jimbo or Riley hire. They want the big names. That's why Riley hired Grinch, I feel. Samples feels more like a Jimbo or Riley hire. They want. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. That Jimbo and Lincoln Riley want the big names, right? And so they'll chase after the big names. Kind of like why he hired Grinch. Yeah, Grinch was a big name coming from Ohio State, right? But yeah, Sark knows what he has a special kind of coach that he wants. We said it before, folks. Like when it comes to Steve Sarkisian, he has a certain kind of player he wants. You see, like the wide receivers he has. He wants fast guys. He wants a race car out there. He wants a team of race cars, right? You're seeing Matthew Golden in high school, 10-8 100-meter dash, right? Then you look at Isaiah Bond, 10-6 100-meter dash. And then you look at who else? You look at Golden. No, I'm saying Bolden. Silas Bolden was, I think he was in a 10-6 or a 10-7 guy at a 5'7", 5'8" range, right? And then you look at Jonte Cook, who's also like a 10-6 guy too as well. And then you get at Ryan Niblett, who's a 10-4, right? So you see a certain kind of guy that he wants at wide receiver, right? And maybe that's the caliber of guy that he wants. He wants the makeup of his wide receiver that way. Maybe from a coaching staff, that's what Sark wants. He wants a guy that has some chops in college, that is a great developer, but also a guy that got some chops in the league too, and that knows exactly what to expect when you have a guy come to University of Texas and what to expect from a recruiting standpoint, and also how do we develop players too? Can this guy develop? It's going to be interesting to see. So Snell goes, the Sarkisian and other successful coaches, it is better to have coaches on the rise than coaches who have peaked at the skill positions. Defensive line is highly reliant on skill techniques for top development. Exactly. So, yeah, get guys that are on the rise. Excuse me, guys. Get guys that are on the rise. Get guys that can develop. You know who's also doing this? And I talked about this with my boy Ty, from ATS Sports. Go look at the Alabama staff right now and who, like Kalen DeBoer is hiring right now. He's not hiring big name guys. He's going to go get in group of 5 head coaches and making them position coaches and making them coordinators, right? So freaking smart. These are guys that are used to managing a whole freaking team. And now Kalen DeBoer is saying, you don't have to worry about managing a team. I just need you to manage a piece of the team. Or if you're not the defensive coordinator, I need you to manage a piece of the team. Right. And so it makes these guys' job that much easier. They're used to being the head of a team. They're used to doing everything themselves or managing things. And now they can really hone down on one small thing and be the greatest at what they can do. And they're up and coming rising coaches. Right. So so Snell, I think you're on to something here. That looks like exactly what Coach Sark is doing. We see that Chris Jackson. Why is he in the box? Why is he the eyes in the sky right now for Sark? Maybe because he wants to be able to look at, just the field from the top. Maybe he wants to be able to have the headset on. Maybe he wants to be the guy that tells Sarkisian what is to be done, because maybe he has aspirations of not only being a wide receiver coach, maybe he wants to be an OC one day and then potentially a head coach. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there. But maybe it's the same thing with a guy like Kenny Baker. This is a guy that probably has great recommendations. His resume, it might not stack up to what we want here or, at Texas, or think that his resume should look like. But maybe this guy comes with great recommendations, not only from the coaching staff at Miami, but from his previous stops and other coaches that have probably coached against him in the league. Yeah, they say, hey man, that dude, I've seen him coach. Like he's really damn good at what he does. And you guys got to understand that NFL it's a small fraternity, folks. It's a small fraternity. They know who's who. And Sark is part of that small fraternity, right? He is part of that small fraternity. Oh man, here's my boy Jay from Hall of Fame, sports here. He goes, did y'all try Bill Belichick? Man, get out of here, Jay. All right, so Jonathan Miller goes, Butler and Wingle. Yes, Butler and Wingle, 10-5 guys. So we're seeing we're seeing what Sark wants, right? And we're seeing it from a player standpoint on what he wants. And we're also seeing it from a coaching standpoint that he wants guys so they're going to have some NFL experience in their tree somewhere. He wants that in the tree because those guys have an understanding of what's necessary to make it to that next level. And when you get to that next level, what's necessary for you to stay at that next level, right? And so maybe that is what Sark is doing. All right, so Jay also says here from Hall of Fame Sports, you got to find those young guys. They connect with players. Yeah, man, Jay. I said that exactly right. I said he's young enough to be, a guy who can relate to the music they listen to the lifestyle, but he's old enough to be their father also. And so now this guy can go sit into you know, um, a kid's living room, talk to his mother and father, talk to his grandmother, what have you, and the mother and father can relate to him because they might be the same age or just a couple years older than him, or younger, just depending on the parents. Or the grandparent can sit in that room and look at him and say, "You remind me of my child," right? Like you're a good dude, right? So yeah, you have to be relatable, you got to be respectable, but also you have to be genuine. And being a genuine person is probably what Sark saw in those interviews. I'm just speculating, folks. I don't know, but you have to be genuine and relatable. And that are two things that are necessary for recruiting. And that is something that Texas severely has been lacking here on the defensive line over the past, 2 to 3 years, is the level of recruiting on that defensive line. And you can tell Sark wants to shore that up. And maybe getting somebody younger who's more relatable is one of those guys who can help shore that up. All right, so Snell goes, chances on Robinson being in the portal later this year. Florida will be humiliated on the field this year. Man, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? We got to really focus on who's on campus right now, right? We just got to, oh, yeah, Schnell, you're right. Livingstone, we're such an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position. And not only a 10-5, well, I don't know if he ran a 10-5 in the 100, but I do know his 200. He has long speed. I thought he ran like a 21, like a 21-4, 21-5, or something like that in the 200, which is long speed, meaning that's speed that you can sustain, right? It's not just I'm quick out the blocks and I'm there for, no, that's long speed that can sustain to as well. He's fast too, man. I always forget about him for some reason, but he's stupid good. Miller goes, yeah, he's stupid fast for his size. Exactly. Him and Wingo are your prototypical boundary wide receivers at that size, but they have just outstanding speed where they can play pretty much anywhere, whether they're boundary, whether they're field, whether they're slot. I mean, they can be moved around just from their speed purposes alone. So Hall of Fame goes G5 Billy, some bet Billy, man, some bet Billy. May not be in as much trouble as you think. He goes, Lagway probably leaves too. Yeah, probably so. But it's interesting. It depends on what Florida does this year. And Schnell goes, there are a couple of interviews of Baker on the On Texas Football website. I had to go check that out. To see exactly, just how he sounds, man. Just to hear how a guy sounds. You want to, hear like when that phone call comes down to a kid, like what is, who is he listening to on the other end, and what does that sound like, right? So, I'll go take a look at that. But folks, look, Texas has their new line coach, like defensive line coach, Kenny Baker. From the Miami Dolphins. He's an assistant defensive line coach. Previous stops prior to that, Group of Five, Western Kentucky for 3 years. Prior to that, UT Chattanooga for a year. Prior to that, Mercer for 5 years. And then at Berry College, also as a co-DC and a line coach. And then he coached high school for 3 years as a DC. After prior to becoming after becoming a grad assistant at his alma mater, Gardner-Webb. So, folks, like, comment, and subscribe to this video, right? Like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Leave a comment in there, man. Let me know what you think about this hire. Are you excited about this hire? Do you think Sark made the right choice on this? I think time's going to tell. I'm ready to see the spring game. I'm ready to see how these guys are developed. I'm ready to see how has the tide turned for a guy like Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins? Are those guys going to be, no kidding, the guys are going to be the war daddies in that room and take over that room like a Murphy and Sweat did this year? Almost like Murphy and Sweat are now passing the torch on to Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton. How's that going to work? And is Kenny Baker going to get the best out of the players that are here on campus? And how does the recruiting look like, especially for the 2025 class that is coming up? Texas has one commitment on the line right now, and that's Brown, one of the top defensive tackles in the country. And we got to see how this guy and how the other recruits feel about this hire too as well. Sark doesn't make bad hires, folks. Think about it for a minute. He doesn't make bad hires. You got to trust in Sark. I trust in it. But folks, just let me know what you think. I'm going to go to a small commercial break prior to us ending this, man. And thanks for tuning in. Hook 'em all day long. Horns always up.
This episode is brought to you by Manscaped.com. Go to Manscaped.com, get yourselves 20% off and free worldwide shipping using the promo code NinosCorner. Manscaped is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming champions of the world. They just released their Lawnmower 4.0 fourth generation trimmer. Go to Manscaped.com, get yourselves 20% off and free worldwide shipping using the promo code NinosCorner.